This is my Creating Innovative Uses of Technology lesson plans, iPads in the Language Arts curriculum. I currently have one-to-one iPads in my 4th grade classroom, as you can see by my students pictured here. I am the only classroom in the district that is piloting this program with one-to-one iPads, so I've had to be very creative in my lesson planning and very purposeful. The reason that I chose language arts for my 4th graders is because I have a wide range of reading and writing abilities in my class. The reading ranges can go from anywhere from a 2nd grade reader up to a 10th grade level reader. So I've had, again, to be very creative. So lesson number 1 is a comparing and contrasting current events lesson, where they're going to use a variety of apps on the iPads as well as some writing. So what they would do is, using any of these apps pictured over here, the New York Times, USA Today, Newsy, for example, they would research 2 similar articles. So they would have to, there'd be a bit of a challenge there. They'd have to find 2 related articles. When I've done something like this in the past, this fall, my students were able to find 2 related articles on the presidential candidates. So that would be an example of 2 articles that are related or on the same topic. Using one of their word processing apps, so for instance Pages or the Notes app, they would then take notes on the 2 articles, and from there they then have an app called Tools for Students, and I have it pictured over here so you can see what it looks like. Tools for Students is a variety of graphic organizers, and the neat thing is the kids can annotate right on top of those graphic organizers, so they're basically just templates of organizers. So here I have pulled up the compare and contrast, the Venn diagram. It's kind of an updated version of that, where you can put in the yellow circle, you can put all the traits of A, and then in the blue circle you can put all the traits of B, so this would be Article 1 and Article 2. And then in the green circle you would put anything that they both shared, so traits that they both shared, so similarities between the 2 articles. From there, what I'm asking them to do is go on their Safari, their internet, and use the Time for Kids homework helper, and I'd like to show you what that looks like if you're not familiar. So Time for Kids has a variety of different homework helpers. This is the compare and contrast. So if we go to Start Helper and we fill in a couple of little details here to get us started, what it does is it kind of walks them through. So it's giving them an example of their title. So this would be maybe my 2 articles, for instance. Hopefully they come up with a catchier title than that. And then it tells them kind of what they're looking for an introduction as far as a compare and contrast essay. It gives them a nice example. So as they type in and they get everything complete, I'll just say that this is complete, you can see on the checklist here that I wrote paragraph 1, the introduction. And so it just kind of is a nice reminder to lead them through what is expected for the compare and contrast essay. So using that, they would actually compose their work. One thing I want to caution though, Homework Helper does not let them save, so it might be wise for them to compose first in Pages or in a different word processing app and then come to Homework Helper, because I wouldn't want the students to lose their work. Alright, so let's see. After students complete their essays, they would turn their work into paperrater.com, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. My students are all very familiar with this. So it is a grammar and spelling check, it does proofreading, and it's very simple to use. So using their Safari, they would type in their title, and just for example, I will pop in some text here, completed text, and I'll spell something wrong. And they can just kind of go through and fill this out. The only thing is my 4th graders already know to do this, but they always choose the lowest, which is 6th grade, and then you can choose if it's a research paper, book report, and then it will just tell you basically, is anything spelled wrong? It looks like spelling, maybe some grammar, and anything that pops up over here, maybe there's word choice that it doesn't like. It will just kind of walk them through how to proofread. So this is something that I've just started this year that's worked out well. We still do a lot of peer editing and things like that, but Paperrater is kind of a cool tool if you haven't used it yet to use with your class. All right, so lesson number 2, that kind of wraps up lesson number 1, the compare and contrast. Lesson number 2 is something I would teach in April, because April is Poetry Month in my classroom. And this is all poetry on our iPads. So for my anticipatory set, I would let my students get on They have two apps on their iPads. One is called Poetry Magnets, and one is called Word Magnets. They're really the same thing. They just have different variety of words to choose from. So that would kind of be their warm-up, and they would make a fun, kind of quirky little magnet poem to get them started as poets. And then from there, they're actually going to access a Shel Silverstein web quest with a partner. I do a lot of Shel Silverstein poems because they're grade appropriate. The students really enjoy his work and can relate to it, and oftentimes they're quite humorous. So they would walk through a web quest, which all of my students are familiar on how to do a web quest and how they're set up with the task and the process and evaluation and all that. But I am going to kind of show you how to do that. For this, I would be asking that they do it in partners. So here's kind of a quick rundown of what the web quest asks, and then I'll take you to it and show you. They're going to read the Giving Tree, and students would then research information about the trees. Then there's a task 2 and a task 3, but before we go there, let's just jump right to it and I can show you exactly what it looks like. So here's their web quest that they would access on Safari, and it is supported by iPads. That is one thing you always have to double check to make sure that the things that you are planning, if you're planning it on a PC, that it is supported with Adobe Flash and all that on iPads, and I did double check, so it does work. So here's the welcome, and all web quests are pretty much set up in a similar fashion. There's then an introduction and kind of walks them through, gives them a little taste for Shel Silverstein and what they're going to be doing. And then the task is really where it breaks down the 3 things that it's asking the students to do. So they've read the Giving Tree, and task number 1 is they're going to learn more about trees. And so they're doing a little bit of research, and they can use their iPads, they can use Google, and they can do whatever they need to do to find that out. So here's task 1. I want to know how do trees grow, what type of fruit grow on trees. So just kind of an easier task for them just to get familiar with the process. Task number 2 is they are going to talk about giving and sharing and caring as identified in the Giving Tree. And with their partner, they're going to use a whiteboard app, and they're going to draw what a picture of giving and caring and sharing looks like to them and talk it out with their partner. So I would have to definitely take note here because it's telling them to use drawing paper and things like that. So my students would have to be kind of forewarned. We're not going to do it on paper. We're going to do the electronic version, which will be a whiteboard app such as Doodle Buddy. And then finally, the last task is where they're actually going to write their poem. And their poem is a short poem about a favorite activity or place to go. So for this, they're actually going to work on their own. They're going to compose their poems. And it needs to be about, as I said, a favorite place that they like to go. From there, after they've composed their poem in Pages or in a word processing app, the students, I would then ask that they record an audio version of their poems, because with poetry I really teach that poetry is all in how you read it. So there's a lot of sometimes rhyme and there's rhythm. And so I want them to get used to recording it. So they would use either Quick Voice Pro or just their voice recorder on their iPads, and they would record an audio version of their poems. After that, they would do a pair share where they would turn and play their recording for their table mate. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up my creating project. Thank you.